Welcome, guys, to Rex Arthur TV. This is the Rex Arthur Show, discussing LGBTQ issues with an LGBTQ approach in an LGBTQ plus planet and an LGBTQ perspective and humanistic approach. And it is a planet. And today we're going to discuss one of the issues that I think is dogging the world. Of course, there are very many issues dogging the world. I know if you watch news, a lot of things are happening with in Europe, America, Africa, Asia, and especially Europe and America. The West is actually really going through a crisis. But that's not what the video is about. But it could be about what we're going to discuss. We are discussing sexual identities. And it's a very critical issue because the world is made up of systems. And you have to understand time. You have to understand time for you to understand the world. If you understand time, you'll understand the world. And when you talk about sexual identities, we have been identifying ourselves sexually for thousands of years. But the LGBTQ movement transformed the sexual identity system the world had. Because in the past, the world knew basically only two sexes, and if they knew a third sex, it was a culture that was a bit very keen about sexuality, and that's like India. India knew there was a third sex, and they called them most Easterners basically, not only Indians, even Arabs and Jews. They knew there was a third sex, and they called them hijras or eunuchs. But most of the cultures in the world didn't have that system. They had they had the dual system. You're either a man or a woman. But now, as times have changed, and we change with time, the sexual identity system came to a transformation in the 20th century with the LGBTQ movement, when now people took sexuality very serious. And I think the reason why that happened is because of the new age. Do you remember the new age? The term new age was very common. And the new age had come. What was the new age? The new age was to tell us that we are entering the Aquarian system. And this Aquarian system was a very scientific system whereby you will be able to know people, sexuality, and you will see people expressing themselves more various and diverse. Now, and this happened in the West, because you have to understand the West. The West was a very closed society because of Christianity. It was very Judeo-Christian. And because of that, they were very private people. Until in the 19th century, the West started properly engaging with the rest of the world through colonization. And they were engaging with the Eastern world. When they engaged with the Eastern world, it changed the point of view of some Westerners about life. Like sexuality. Westerners now started becoming more and more open about sex. So, meaning they were becoming more and more Eastern. Because Eastern people have always been free about sex, only that they don't really bring it out in the open during the day. They like doing it at night, So, like in Pakistan, Pakistan is a Muslim country, but they've had transgenders and male sex workers for thousands of years. And it's a Muslim country. But what they do, they hide. They do their things at night, so you don't see them during the day. And the Western system is a very day system. They like doing things in the day. So they want to know you're a homosexual during the day, not just at night. That happens in Pakistan. So when they met them, if you've read the books of this guy, I'm forgetting him right now, Richard Burton. You see, Richard Burton opened the world to the East, Kama Sutra. He talked about sex. And he was writing at a time when the West was very private and shy about sex. And he wrote it, talking about sex and how the Indians value sex and they take it very ritualistically. So some Westerners liked what Burton was writing. Others, of course, disagreed with him. And what happened is those who agreed with Richard Burton started their own Western Kama Sutra. And remember Donald Lawrence. Donald Lawrence started writing very sexually provocative books. And then Oscar Wilde was the gay poet, and he was not ashamed of his sexuality. And they all of these guys, Donald and Oscar, they came out at a time when Europe was very Christian. It was very Christian and very puritanical. They didn't want to talk about sex, anti-sexual actually, because that's when the laws of anti-homosexuality were there. Of course, even in the West, they had transgenders. They were called mollies, and the women. I mean, these were young men who could dress up as ladies, but they used to be in the houses, and they were called mollies. Now, so when the West messed the East through colonization and war and all of these cultural interactions that happened, they got to copy certain things from the East. And one of the things they copied was sexual openness. And it came to the West, and that's when the LGBTQ movement now came out of the closet. The Westerners got to realize they also had hijras in their presence. Before, they never knew they had hijras because of the Christianity system, the Abrahamic religions. And guess what? In the Bible, they are eunuchs. But so, because, okay, let's put this in perspective. We are discussing sexual identities, and I've just told you how the West met the East through colonization properly. And then the West, the colonizers, some of them wrote back to the West about what they've seen in the East, and people got to know, and some of them copied the Eastern ways. And that's what happened to the to the West. The West now started becoming open about sexuality. And then you have the hijras. The hijras in the West, because hijras are found in every race. Every race has a third sex. Every race. Black, white, mulatto, Asian. They all have a third sex. They were members, they were baptized in the church. Because the time they were members of the church, this knowledge was still very fresh. And now, as years went on, they opened up and said, no, we have transgenders, we have gay people, we have intersex people, and so we should recognize their rights. So that has been a war, because even the system that was taken for colonization to Africa is a colonized continent. Even the governments that are in Africa are still having colonial foundations. So what does that mean? There is still resistance to the hijra system in Africa that has naturally been there. Africa has had LGBTQ persons for thousands of years. Africans are the originators of the human race. So what does that mean? It means they are the ones who even gave us these LGBTQ variations. It's a fact. So it's so sad to find African countries are homophobic and transphobic when these people have been there. You see, but you know why it is a problem in Africa? It's not because of the Africans, it's colonization. They were colonized by a Western system that was so it was so ignorant of the sexual sciences. Now the West has got to know sexual science, and it is reforming its system and has reformed it, though they're still having struggles. And now they are having a struggle to reform the colonized systems they sent to the islands and the continents of the world. Now, let's go back to what we were discussing. So we are talking, what are we talking about? Let's come back here to keep ourselves in perspective. We are talking about identities. LGBTQII, LGBTQIAAP, identities and sexualities. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Now we're going to do it chronologically because that's very orderly. In the ancient world, here we are. The world was Eastern. And in the Bible, they say that people came from Babylon, or rather the whole world used to live in Babylon. And then they dispersed to other places. I could agree with that partly, but in any case, even if I don't agree with it, it's a fact that most of the world was Eastern. All of the ancient empires of the past were from the East. None of them were from the West. The ancient empires include Egypt, include Babylon, and they include Assyria, and they include Persia. These were the ancient empires, and they controlled the world. And then, of course, in the Deep East, we had the Chinese Empire and the Indian Empire. Now, all of these were ruling the world, Egypt and all of that. Now, Egypt, the Egyptian system was basically man or woman. The African system, you're either a man or a woman. They never really talked about hijras, as far as I am understanding my reading of history. I'm still reading the history. They had homosexuals in ancient Egypt, but it was purely man sleeping with a man. It was nothing to do with third sex. There was no castration of the man. I mean, even Egyptian theology loves masturbation. I mean, culture, masturbation is very okay in the Egyptian culture. And it's just that what has happened, as I've told you, the westernized colonization destroyed and brought anti-sexuality. It exported, it brought anti-sexuality to Africa. But before that, Africa was very free with their bodies. Africans play with their bodies. They're very sexual. And it's nature. It's good. It makes you happy. You don't have a lot of stress. You don't have a lot of problems when you are very sexual. Antisexuals tend to have problems because they are controlling their bodies beyond beyond control. So anyway, basically in Egypt they had man and woman, and that was all they had. That's all they had, man and woman. So it was a dual system. But in India and China and Persia and Babylon, they had eunuchs and what you call the hijras. These are the transgenders, intersex. They found all of these people. Now, I don't want to go deep into the reason why ancient Egypt didn't want to talk about intersex people, but one thing I know about Africa history, there are cultures in Africa that killed intersex children because they found them to be bad omens. They thought they were bad omens because they never understood how can a child be born with a vagina and a penis. So the midwives, when they would find a baby has a vagina and a penis, they would kill it. So one reason why Africa may not really have a culture of recognizing hijras or intersex or third sexes is because if they appeared in the physical, they were killed. So the only intersex people in Africa that survived are those who maybe had internal sex organs, like semenya. You know, semenya is a hydra, but internally has a testis. So you can't see that she has balls. She has balls, but when you see her physically, externally, she has a vagina. So she's hidden. These are the hidden ones, you could call them, the hidden hydras of Africa. But if she had a penis and a vagina, she would have been killed if her culture does not respect or does not recognize intersex or doesn't understand intersex persons. So when you kill very many intersex children, you will not have very many intersex persons. But India didn't do that. They realized because they were doing castration and all of these things, and so meaning when you find a society that castrates people, men, it's a society that can play with their body parts. Yes, they play with their body parts. And Africa, of course, played with the body parts, but in very homosocial settings. Like I'm going to talk about this in another video, that Africa is more homosexual than you think. Yes, even Arab world is more homosexual than you think because people stayed with the same sex most of their time. So it's a fact. They used to shower together. When there was circumcision, they circumcise. They're circumcised by all of these things, but circumcised by men. It is the Western system that now is a bit changing and trying to heterosexualize the system. But ancient systems were basically, or at least the African and the Arab and the Eastern systems, Middle Eastern systems, they were mainly homosexual. Teaching was a man teaches a man. Even in Greece, it happened. And things have changed now because we've now known that we are not just men and women, we are human beings. And that's what we're going to do when we're discussing these sexual identities. So that's the Eastern world and ancient world. Then the world started being Western when the Greek civilization started rising in power. And remember, Greece became friends with Egypt, started visiting, the Greek philosophers started visiting these countries and these regions, but mostly. And then the Greeks became so powerful after getting all this knowledge, and then you had the Greek Empire. Then after the Greek Empire, Greece is next to Italy. And the Romans got knowledge from the Greeks and then also came and did their travelings. But they didn't do traveling to, they didn't do traveling to study because they already got the knowledge from the Greeks, the Romans. So they just went to colonize. So they came and colonized Egypt. They first of all destroyed the Greek Empire. And then after destroying the Greek Empire, they controlled all of these regions except China and India because they were very far. So the Roman Empire not only conquered these areas, they also conquered Europe. And so the Roman system went on to take over the world. And then after the Roman system, the Roman married Christianity. And then you had what you call the Holy Roman Empire. that controlled Europe, but now left Egypt because when it grew up, the Arab world arose with a new religion called Islam. And Islam took over the Arab world and took over Africa, North Africa and parts of West Africa, and even East Africa. So that was the end. Islam now closed the south, took the south away from Europe, and then Christianity now took Europe. Now, 600 years of European rule, Roman Empire, now they decided to visit China, and they decided to visit the Americas, which had their own civilizations. And then that's how the Western system went through. I'm so sorry, I'm doing a very haphazard history, but I think you'll get what I'm trying to say. Now, so we are on what do you call it, sexual identities. So some societies were dual and others were three-pronged systems. Now let's come here, forget about all I've written. That was a lot of my history, and I want us to focus here and then we're done with the video. Now, when you're walking in the street, so I've told you already, the ancient world was Eastern and the modern world was and is Western. Now, the Eastern system is a closed system. Rather, and number one is a closed system. It doesn't value documentation. It values a lot of observation, but no documentation. That's why Africans don't write their stories. They share them. Same to even Arab countries before Islam came. They never wrote about their life. They just used to share, oral. But for other countries, like some Eastern countries like India and China, they started documenting. And they documented their history and their stories and their books. Then the West became the king of documenting. And so what is happening now in Africa? Africa is now beginning to realize the importance of documentation of its history. So, ancient world, Eastern. Western world, ancient world, Eastern. Modern world, Western. So the Western world primarily depends on documentation of everything, including identification of who you are. That's why the Western world has an identity card system. And now it's even gone. We are left identification card. We're now having biometrics. You don't even need, your ID is useless right now with the biometric system because the biometric system uses your fingerprints. And your fingerprints are connected to your name or to your birth certificate. So even if you have thousands and thousands of identity cards, as long as you're in a biometric system, your identity card is connected to your fingerprints. So you will never have 1,000 identity cards. All of those cards are useless because you have a biometric system that picks you. And the biometric system is connected to one name that is assigned to those fingerprints. One name. So that's and of course the biometric identification system is also having its hurdles because it is, the challenge is fingerprints can actually have more than one name. Yes, it can happen. So what happens in that case? The system is clogged and gone. So anyway, let's go back to what we're trying to discuss. Now, imagine let me draw you here. And you're walking in the street. What do you see in the street when you're walking? There you are. Let's see you smiling. Yeah, you're happy. And you're walking in the street. whom do you see in the street? You either see men or women. Why do you see men or women? How do you know that is a man or a woman? Because of what they wear, their clothes. And because of how they look. Good. So you go in the street and you see men and women. But are you sure they're men and women? They are not really men and women. Some people are not men and women. Some people are third sex. But they are wearing clothes of men and women. But they're a third sex. They're intersex. They're hijras. They're transgenders. They're walking on the street. So what does this mean? We live in a deceptive world. We live in deception. And that's what you need to know. We don't tell the truth. Generally, we are lying. We live in an illusion. Let's put it at that. Let me not say lying. We live in an illusion. And this illusion is that when you're walking in the street, you're seeing men and women. But not everybody you're seeing is a man and a woman. Some people are third sexed. So the only time you will know this person is a third sex is when they remove their ID card. Oh, it's just a sad... What's happening in the world is chaos. It's just chaos. I'm just thinking about it right now, and I'm just seeing chaos. There's nothing else. Because a man can have an ID card to show that he's a man, and when you strip him down naked, he has a penis, but he has an internal sex organ of a woman. So is he really a man? You see, he's a third sex. And a woman, like I told you, Semenya, she has testes, but she has a vagina in there externally. So when you strip her down, she's a woman, but when you go and check her deeply, she's actually a third sex person. So her ID card should not be female. It should be third sex. But if you give her an ID card of a female, then it means you are lying, even as a government. So what does this mean? The system is elusive. It is deceptive. There is really no truth. And at least for Semenya, you can see she has masculine features. So thankfully, that's why people wonder, but she is wearing, she's a woman and she's dressing like a woman and she has a deep voice. But she has a deep voice. Is she a woman or a man? So what people should say, no, she's third sex, meaning she is a strange person. That's why we use the word queer for everybody who is different sexually. Even when you sleep with men, a man sleeping with a man is a queer man, because normally people should not sleep. That's what nature has taught people. If you view sex as reproduction, a man sleeping with a man cannot reproduce. A woman sleeping with a woman cannot reproduce. So, but a man and a woman can reproduce. So that's why we call them straight. But if a man sleeps with a man and they don't reproduce at all when both of them are fertile, then it's weird. And that's why we call the LGBTQ persons queer persons. And that's how it is. And of course, it doesn't mean, as I've told you, a man can sleep with a man, whether he's straight or not. Yes, and a woman can sleep with a woman, whether she's straight or not. That's why we are in the sexual singularity system, whereby we are all one, and you can have sex whichever way you want, and with whomever you want. That's why we have entered the sexual singularity. whereby we are one sex. It's uniarchy. I call it that way. Okay, so you're in the street and you've seen a man or a woman. Now, the second layer, I want you to see every human you see on the street like an onion. Now, so sorry, I wanted to rotate the device. Okay, let's go on. Let's see, we are an onion. See, everybody has an onion. The first layer, when you peel an onion, gives you're with a man. So when you see somebody, he's a man. Then the second layer of the onion, the man could either be straight and therefore an ally, meaning he's a friend of gay people, a gay man, a bisexual man, a queer man, a trans man, a questioning man, an asexual man, and a pansexual man. So this is the second layer of the onion. So when you meet a man on the street, you say, "Hey, how are you?" "I'm fine." "What's your name?" "Patrick." So the man is called Patrick. "Okay, your name is Patrick. Now, who are you sexually?" "I'm queer." He could tell you. He can tell you any of these 8 identities. He can be straight, he can be gay, he can be bisexual, he can be queer, he can be a trans man, he can be questioning, he can be asexual, he can be pansexual. That's the second layer of the onion. The first layer of the onion is whom he identifies as a person. Now, the second layer is the sexual identity. This is to do with gender. And you see the word gender comes from the word generations. Gender, 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 gene, generations, meaning to reproduce, genesis, the origin. So a man, that's his gender identity. Then the sexual identity is the second layer of the onion, and he can be either of these 8 identities. Then, in that second layer, that man can either be having anal sex, vaginal sex for the straight people and bisexuals and pansexuals, or oral sex for everybody. So these are the 3 types of sexes because all of them involve penetration. So you can penetrate an anus, you can penetrate a mouth, and you can penetrate a vagina. And we're only talking about penetrative sex. We're not talking about non-penetrative sex. That is secondary sex. This is primary sex. It can either be anal and vaginal or oral. Now, when it's oral and anal or vaginal, this is now the third layer of the onion on sexuality. The person can either be a top, a bottom, or a verse, meaning they can do both of these. So you can find Patrick is a gay man who is a top, meaning he is a gay man who fucks anally. He enters, he penetrates an anus of a fellow man. That makes Patrick a gay top. Patrick can also be a gay bottom, meaning he's a receiver of the penis. And Patrick can also be a gay vas, meaning he is a man who can be penetrated and also penetrate a fellow man. That is a gay man. Now, a bisexual, if Patrick was a bisexual, we'd also ask him, now, what type of sex do you have? And he can tell you, I have, and because he's bisexual, it means he's having both anal and vaginal sex. And of course, oral sex can happen in both sexes, so it is free. So a bisexual man has both anal and vaginal sex. So when he's having vaginal sex, he is mostly the one who penetrates. But when he's having anal sex, he can be top, bottom, or vas. But guess what? He cannot be in bisexual. When he's like, let's say he's bisexual, Patrick is a bisexual, and he meets a girl called let's give a girl's name, Sylvia. And he meets Sylvia, and Sylvia happens to be his wife. Sylvia can decide to fuck his anus, and that will make Patrick a bottom because she has a dildo at home. And she says, you know, I've seen your ass, Patrick, and it's so lovely. I think you can have, I can enter. And Patrick says, yeah, I'm bisexual. I don't mind. I can be fucked in the ass if you can. And so Sylvia gets a dildo and fucks Patrick's anus. So, yet, Patrick, when he sleeps, when he penetrates Sylvia, he may only penetrate Sylvia vaginally, or he can also penetrate Sylvia anally, because Sylvia also has an anus. All humans should have anuses. Of course, there's some who don't have, and they're very few. But generally, every human has an anus. So every human can have, humans can have anal sex, they can have oral sex, and they can have vaginal sex. So there's variety of sex you can have. And men have anuses. So, and women can penetrate anuses using dildos. And this is what we need to understand. This is where the world has come to. We have come to a place whereby we have entered sexual singularity. So that's Patrick for you, his layer. So let's write Patrick's onion. Patrick's onion is the first layer, he's a man. The second layer, he is gay. The third layer, he is a top. Are you seeing that? That's Patrick. He has 3 layers of his onion. Now, this is Patrick. He is living in a westernized system. So this code I'm using can be used for anybody, even a woman. Sylvia can actually be a lesbian, therefore she's gay, or a bisexual. Let's give Sylvia a trans woman. Yes, that's nice. So when you see Sylvia on the street, she's wearing a dress, she has a mini skirt, and then you say, hi, how are you? I'm fine. And then you ask, what's your name? I'm Sylvia. Oh, Sylvia. And what's your sexual orientation? I'm a trans woman. And, oh, you're a trans woman. Actually, let's change the voice. Trans women can also have bass. Yeah, I'm a trans woman. And I'm Sylvia. Oh, trans woman. So how do you have sex? Well, I went to the hospital and I got a vagina, but I know how to, I penetrate my husband using a dildo, and he can also fuck my vagina. Oh, that's beautiful. So Sylvia is a trans woman who is a top when having anal sex, with her husband, but is a receiver when having vaginal sex with him, making him a bisexual, because the fact is Patrick is a gay man who is a top. Okay, he's a top, and this is called mixed orientation relationships. So that's what happens. So if Patrick is bisexual, he's gay, yes, but he's straight when he fucks a vagina. Bisexuality means you're both gay and straight. You're gay when you fuck a man, if you're a man, and you're straight when you fuck a woman. Or you're gay when you're fucked by a man, and then you're straight when you fuck a woman. And as I've told you right now, the weird thing is that Sylvia, a trans woman, can actually fuck a man. Any woman can fuck a man. Yes. But she won't use a penis, a real penis. She will use a dildo. Or even her finger. She can penetrate the anus of the husband or the man, and they have had anal sex. So that's Patrick and that's Sylvia. So Sylvia, now let's write Sylvia's onion. Sylvia's onion is a trans woman that has she's a trans woman. No, she's a woman, sorry. She's a woman, number one. Number two, she's a trans woman. That's her sexuality. She's a transgender. And number three, she is a receiver when she has vaginal sex, but she's a top when she penetrates her Patrick. So look at that. So these are the identities that have happened in the LGBTQIAAP planet. The system has changed. Wake up, people. It has changed, and it's changing more and more every day. As I've told you, women can fuck men, men can fuck men, women can fuck women, men can fuck women. Everybody is having a good time if they are in. Yes, and everybody do what you want, you know. Basically, connect with whomever you want to connect with. These 8 identities, you're either of these. You're either of these. And then the third sex is the intersex people. You know, they do not know really where to go. I remember I had a friend, I have a sizable number of intersex friends, and I always ask them, what do you decide to do? Because when you have a vagina and a penis, what do you want? You know, do you want to be fucked? Do you want to fuck? What makes you happy? Because intersex people also need to be happy. I mean, everybody wants to be happy. And there's a very good movie we watched at the last week that was in the intersection, about intersection movie, and we're going to put it in our channel. And it's very important for everybody to watch that and understand. So basically, these are the identities. So we're going to write them out very neatly later on, so that we can not have a very dirty board we're writing on. So you see, these are the layers of the onion. Now, most people who are out, when you are out, you can be out like this. You see Patrick and Sylvia? They are out because the onion has been peeled to the center. Because whenever you see Patrick, oh, Patrick says he's a top. So I know who Patrick is. Patrick is a man who fucks, penetrates another man. So he's a top. Then Sylvia, oh, we know Sylvia. Sylvia is a trans woman, yeah. And so some people, they come out to layer 2. You know? Oh, me, I'm just gay. I'm a trans woman. But you don't know what they're doing in the bedroom. But the moment somebody comes out and tells you they are top, they have completely come out. They're even telling you what they do in the bedroom. And the moment this trans woman says that I'm a woman, so basically, she has a vagina or should have a vagina. Some trans women don't have vaginas, but they're women. Yes. And then when they have a vagina, she's a receiver of vaginal sex. But because you've got to understand something, everybody, if you have an anus, a mouth, like for all men, they basically have an anus and a mouth. So they are receivers, but only anally and orally. But women have an anus, a mouth, and a vagina. So they are receivers in 3 areas. And it's up to you to pick whatever you want. I mean, your orientation makes you go and settle with whomever you want to settle with. And this is why we are pressuring countries that do not recognize LGBTQ persons to recognize, decriminalize gay sex, to allow these people, our people, to be free to have sex with whomever they want to have sex with. Good. Now, we are talking, these are outed people. Patrick is out, Sylvia is out. Now, there's a guy called Abdullahi. Let's give him a Muslim name because Muslims tend to be very closeted. Abdullahi, when you see him on the street, he's a man. And he's a Muslim man because he wears the regalia. He wears the long regalia of the Muslim man. That's all you know about him. So his onion can only be the outer layer, the layer number one of the onion. He's a man. You don't know his sexual orientation. You don't know what part of how he plays his sex. But Patrick, you even know what role he plays in bed. So you see, Abdullahi is closeted. Patrick is out. Because you not only know Patrick's gender, you also know his sexual orientation and you know his sex role in bed. But for most Muslim men, I'm giving an example, Abdullahi, of course, even the Western men who are closeted, you will only know one layer of the onion. The rest of the onion, they will never open it up to you. So that's now the question. That's where we are right now as a world. This is where we are. Some people open up fully, they're out. Others do not open up. So we are now in a world where some are out and some are closeted. I support everybody to do what they want, to be out or closeted, as long as it's your volition. Of course, there are setbacks in being out and setbacks in being closeted, but it's your choice to do what you want to do. And the ID systems in some countries are changing, but they only change in this level, adding the third sex, so that they know how many intersex persons they have in the country and how many people are eunuchs, for example. But basically, most systems in the world have man or woman identification. Then the sexual orientation area, they let it go. That's up to you. And then, that's up to you. Like on Facebook, you can say, I am a trans woman, my profile. That's why Facebook has a profile. They want to know who you are. So you can say, I'm a pansexual, I'm a trans, I'm a questioning person. And then this one is now for the bedroom, your sex role. And you're either having oral sex, anal sex, or vaginal sex, or a combination of these 3. Yep, and we're done with the video. So let's do a summary of what we have studied. Let's do a summary of what we have studied. Number 1, we have said Everybody in the world is an onion. Everybody in the world is a human. So that's what we're saying. We are all humans. So we are all onions. Okay? We are all humans. When you walk in the street, you see humans on the street. You see onions. Like, have you gone to buy onions? You buy them when they're not yet peeled. So it's like humans. You just see a human. The human beings walking on the street. Then you decide to know these humans or these onions. And then you come here. So that's layer one. You've gone home, you've bought onions. Now you are sorting the onions out. And then you start peeling. So there's layer one. The layer one is the gender of that person. So gender, let's put gender here, layer one. And the human you can be talking about is a man. Now, some people, many men most men I know stay here, but I don't want to go deeper. But in my relationships with men, they stick here. They don't want you to know the second layer of their life. They keep it very private, you know. So you find a guy, and this man's name is called, what do you give him now? Let's get an S name. Let's get Steven. So that's Steven. So when you peel the onion, layer one, you only know him as a man. You get his identity card, his ID card. Now, that's Steven. But then when you probe Steven deeper, you go to layer two. That's his sexual orientation, which is not necessarily, it's not visible to know some people's sexual orientation, though for some people it's visible. You can tell someone is a trans man. And then, so when you meet him, you meet Steven. Steven comes and tells you his sexual orientation. So the sexual orientation is second layer, layer two. And he tells you, I am bisexual. Then layer three, you open the onion, you're peeling the onion, and you're removing the first layer. You've already removed his gender. The second layer, you've already removed his sexual orientation. The third layer, it is his sex role. And he tells you, because he's bisexual, he has vaginal sex, and he also has oral and gay sex or anal sex. And then he tells you when he has anal sex, now that could be another layer. Now that is what you call sexual role specific. And then that's the fourth role. And then he now tells you, actually, when I have vaginal sex, you know, I'm a man. Since I'm a man, I'm the penetrator, or I'm the top. But when I'm having the gay sex or anal sex, I am versatile. So that means I receive, and therefore I'm a bottom, and then I'm a top. That means I also fuck the anus of a man. So those are the four layers of the life of Steven, his ID card. But when you get to his ID card, it just tells you he's a man. But it doesn't tell you his SO, it doesn't tell you his SR, and it doesn't tell you his SRS. And that's how it is. So congratulations to the world. We have discovered identities. Some people, there are some countries in the world where ID systems are. So some people don't have ID cards. So basically you just see them, you just see a man. And that is what, so you don't know his SO, you don't know his SR, you don't know his SRS. Even you don't know whether you're talking to a third sex, because somebody will tell you I'm a man. But when you do research and microscopic research, you'll find he actually has an ovary or two in his body, and he's a woman. And that's why some people who are intersex, the beauty of intersexuality is that some people tend to really show their intersex. You know, there are some men with hips, there are some men with soft voices like women, and then that's a sign that he's a, but when you open him, when you undress him, he has a penis. So that's a sign of intersexuality. That's a sign of a third sex. That's a hijra you're talking to. So it's a very beautiful world we're living in. So this LGBTQIAAP planet is very beautiful, and it has all of these people. And what I told you, remember one thing, we've already done a summary of what it is. We are all onions. And some people don't want you to know all their layers. They only want you to know their first layer. That is their gender. Others want you to know everything. There's some people who are so out, they love sex, so they even want to tell you what they are doing in bed. And others, now I'm included on this point. Now the problem is you must know the systems of the world are in crisis because of two things: truth and deception. Lies. So we are not yet done. You know, you can have an ID card that is lying. Like I've told you, Stephen can actually be an intersex, but he has an ID card that calls him a man. It should call him a third sex. You see? Because if he has an ID card that is calling him a man and he's actually a third sex, then we'll have a problem, because you will not be able to know why he engages in this sex. You see, you need to know someone's sexuality in depth to know why he behaves how he behaves. That's to help psychosexuality. Yes, rather than psychology. Because if you do not know somebody's sex purely, whether they're intersex, then you will not know why they behave how they behave sexually. That's how you need to understand. All right, so so basically we are living in a clash of systems, because some countries still live in, their systems are too weak. So when your system is weak, it will have a lot of lies and deception. When your system is very strong, it will have a lot of truth. But even now with AI, it's getting harder. It's getting very hard to understand things, because AI has to do microscopic search of a person, because AI can detect that, can call you straight when you're not straight. It can call you gay when you're not gay, like what Facebook said. Facebook was now trying to do what you call a survey on who is sexual. Of course, they do that for deception purposes. You know, there's psychological manipulation. You can make people confused just to create confusion in the system. Because deception, according to Sun Tzu, is the ultimate weapon. You never should tell the truth, according to Chinese war philosophers. But in the Western system, it's the truth that sets you free. It's not deception. So in the Western system that values Christianity, partly, they value truth. But in the Eastern system, especially China, deception is the ultimate weapon. Because when you lie, your enemy doesn't know you. You see? So for the Easterners, especially Chinese, they use lies to hide to be hiding. But the West does not value hiding the truth. They believe that the truth sets you free. You know, when you tell people the truth, you're not bothered hiding. You know, even me personally, I'm biased. I like the Western system. I prefer living in truth, you know. This is who I am. If you take it or leave it, you know, don't give a fuck. Don't mess with me. That's who I am. If you have a problem, please come and talk to me, and I deal with you fair and square. You know, that's how I am. And I think I love the Western system. But some people are Eastern, and it's understandable. They want to hide. And I still deal with them. I still deal with Eastern people. You know, there's some people, they will never tell you their sexuality. They don't even have a Facebook account. They don't even want people to know who they are sexually, you know, because they feel it's sad for them. And what you do to those people, you help them, because Easterners, especially the Arabic and Christianized Easterners, which is Africans, in my view, Africans are Christianized Easterners. Or they could be centrists, because the world came from Africa before it went to the East and then back to the West. And who knows, maybe coming back to Africa, we don't know. But the guys, basically the Africans, I call them Christianized Easterners, because the view of sex is like the Abrahamic religions. They call sex bad manners, you know. It's bad, don't do that, you're doing bad, you know, when you're having sex. But for Westerners, you know, oh, enjoy yourself, you know, it's fun, go and have sex, just do it, you know. So that's the West. And so for the Eastern people, especially Arabs, go and tell them, go and have sex. They can even stone you, you know, because they take it so precious. It's so precious, and it should be hidden. And this is the interesting thing you need to understand about Easterners, especially Muslims. Of course, I don't support honor killing. Like what they do, they kill women for not valuing the arranged marriage system, which is very wrong. You're not supposed to kill somebody because of marriage. But there is something, I watched a video and I really laughed at it and said, actually, these Muslims, they really value their ladies in a weird way. Very weird way, because they hide them. You see, they hide them. They hide them because they know they value sex in a way that if I have ladies in my house as daughters, I will hide them from the men, the marauding lions. So they demand them to cover themselves with clothes and not to walk out at night, you know, all of those things. But that's why I love the Western system. Western system empowers women, tells women, be who you are, get what you want, do what you want, and go. So the reason why we're having chaos all over the world is because of the clash of civilizations. Samuel Huntington said it very well, that there will be a clash of civilizations. That's what's happening. And we are still in it. It hasn't settled down. It will settle down when one civilization controls the whole world. That's when it will settle down. And the civilization I would prefer a mix of a Western and Eastern system that is universal, a universal civilization, a uniarchy that is a mix. These days I like mixing things, you know, get the good from the West, get the good from the East, and mix them together. That's my view. But we're waiting to see how it will pan out, you know, in the 21st century. That's why we're having issues. Look what's happening in Europe right now. Do you know why Brexit is happening? It's because of clash of civilizations. Do you know why European Union is facing crisis because of the collapse? It's because of clash of civilizations. There is a new civilization that has come to Europe. It's an Eastern civilization in the form of Islam. And it has never happened. The Crusades were because of Western civilization invading Eastern civilization. They went to Israel and the Middle East, and there was a war. And now it's a reversal. Now it's the Easterners through Islam coming to the West, and it's changing the systems in the West. So there's a lot of chaos in Western systems because now they are mixing and they are accepting the Islamic civilization in a presence whereby other people do not accept those civilizations. So that's what's going on in Europe. And it's also happening. America has already closed the doors. They are controlling Eastern migration to America. That's what has happened in America. They are controlling Eastern migration to America. Like the American Muslims are less than 5%. Less. Yes, less. And I mean, American Muslims that have come from the East, Louis Farrakhan is a nation of Islam, but those are westernized Muslims. They are American Muslims. They've never been to Mecca, and they are not Easternized. They still live American ways. Louis Farrakhan doesn't wear a kanzu. Have you seen him wearing the Arabic outfit? He doesn't wear them because he's westernized. He became a Muslim when he was already westernized. So that's what we have for Louis Farrakhan. But the other Arab Muslims who are coming to America, they are purely Eastern because their lifestyle, they were Easternized when they were young. So Trump had to lock the door. He's trying to understand what is this happening. Europe is already gone. They have to now solve that issue amicably rather than violently. And Britain, already you're seeing the Brexit chaos is to control all of those, to control any civilization. So, because they want to keep their Western civilization or a Western civilization that can accommodate all civilizations. The problem is they didn't do demographic calculations and demographic estimations to prepare, because if Muslims will become many, they tend to be more fertile than Europeans. So what's going to happen? In a few years, Europe is going to become an Islamic continent. Yes, it's a fact. It's fertility. There's nothing, and Europeans should not feel bad about that. They should understand that fertility plays a very important role in demographics. It has nothing to do that you're a bad person. No, it's nature. And that's why technology has helped the West. You can have IVF children. You can have children through IVF. You can have children through stem cell reproduction. It's possible. So the issue is, are the women in the West willing to carry IVF babies? Maybe they're tired with life, Have you noticed, we're going to talk about this because we're also studying about human evolution. And there should be something called cultural fatigue. People are just tired of living life. It's so obvious. You're doing the same things over and over again, and you just feel like, what? I'm just tired of this. It's just too much. Of course, some humans know how to diversify their life and make it happy, and so they are not really tired. They have no cultural fatigue. But other people have cultural fatigue, psychological fatigue. They're going through the same motions over and over again, and they're so tired with it. That's why some people commit suicide in Denmark. In very modern societies. Do you know why they commit suicide when they have everything? They are tired, bored. They are really bored with life. Other people commit suicide for very strong reasons, like being persecuted and being tortured. But others commit suicide because they are bored. Life is so boring and they can't change the environment. Actually, for me, what I tell people, when you are bored with life and you're in a very modern society like Denmark or Scandinavian countries, change the environment. Go and travel to Africa, live there, try and get a new citizenship. You will meet new friends, you will meet new people, you will eat new foods, try some things, cultures. That's how you deal with boredom. That when you're bored by something, don't repeat it because it will make you bored. And that's what you do. That's how life is. Anyway, enough of what we discussed. Thank you for joining us. It was a very nice classroom. There is our blackboard. We can do a flyover. You know, we're doing a helicopter. We are flying through. Yes. Surveying the blackboard. For those who missed what we were discussing at the beginning, you will find. And then we're going to do it better again. So thank you so much for joining us.